Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to your Daily Penguin. This is our waddle through all the penguins that I have, all the penguins that I have had, and all the penguins that I will have. And today we are straying into Dude Bro territory. We are looking at the Penguin Classic Deluxe Edition of The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. The Penguin Classic Deluxe Editions are usually wonderful works of art. They usually have a lot of thought behind them, and that's wonderful. There are only a couple that really fall by the wayside, and I've noticed that the ones that fail tend to fail because of the introductions that were commissioned rather than for the choice or the design of the books themselves. And this is a case of that. The introduction here is by Amor Towles, who is a fantastic novelist, but who gives a weirdly tone-deaf introduction to this novel. Not that you could do a good introduction to this novel, but the Penguin Classic Deluxe Editions are works of art on their own. This has, you can't really tell, but this has a matted finished cover. They have the deckled edges. They have the French flaps, but also they have newly commissioned artwork, most of them, that extends to the French flaps. So that you get stories. In this case, you have stories that wrap all the way around the book. Tell you about the lost generation and all that. All sorts of atmosphere like that is just included in the Penguin Classic Deluxe Edition. Just wonderful to have, which I think explains why I have kept this. This came out a couple of years ago, this edition of Sun Also Rises. I think it was 2022 when this book came into the common domain, and the minute it did, that was a starter pistol going off for every publisher under the sun to print their own version of it. Penguin did it up really nice. This is the loveliest paperback edition of The Sun Also Rises. And maybe that's why I have it, because the publisher was kind enough to send it to me, and I wrote about it. I'll leave a link to my review down below, and it's really a pretty design. But there are some things against it that mitigate against it being in my physical collection. One is it has a weirdly off-topic introduction. That was the reason why I got rid of the Penguin Classic Deluxe Edition of Edith Wharton. It's the reason why I might be inclined to get rid of this. The other reason why this wouldn't be on my shelf anymore is because of the book itself, because of the author. Hemingway is, I don't even know the word to use. He's grotesquely overrated. And for intensely personal, non-literary reasons. The balding, paunchy university professors who go on and on about this guy do so because they can't lift their own body weight anymore. Only. They don't do it because of what they're seeing on the page. They don't do it because of what they're seeing on the page. The young men, the young dude bros who go on and on about this guy, do it only because they have dodgy relationships with their fathers, not because of what they're seeing on the page. If you took the name off this crap, put a stranger name on it, or worse, a woman's name on it, they'd be all over the obvious self-evident flaws that run throughout this book. I'm not saying that Hemingway didn't work on this book. He did. He put a lot of work into this book, but he was a third-rate author. So no matter how much work he puts into the book, he's still going to screw it up. This is an ugly book. It takes place in Paris and, of course, famously in Pamplona, and it involves lots of drinking and lots of male bonding, and there's a group of I would say tight-knit friends, but they hate each other. They're not friends in any way. They would sell each other down the river in 2 seconds. There are totemic women that are not human. The women in Hemingway are either painted Easter Island idols or coiled pit vipers, ready to strike. Never anything else. They're never anything else. I would say that that it follows the rules of dude bro literature to a T, except that it set those rules. Hemingway set most of those rules himself. They didn't exist before him. I want to read you just a bit of what we're talking about here. Hemingway, the point I want to make is that Hemingway appeals to the fans that he appeals to. He has legions of fans for non-literary reasons. And I wouldn't object to that at all. I wouldn't mind that if they would admit it. Instead of teaching college courses and saying that these things belong in the canon. College courses and things belonging in the canon are literary judgments. And none of the people that champion this guy's books the loudest have ever judged him on literary grounds. They judge him because they are growing weak, they are getting fat in the middle, they are losing their hair, or they have dodgy relationships with their fathers. Or they've, in the 21st century, they've gone down the dude bro YouTube rabbit hole and come out the other end largely convinced that, appearances notwithstanding, women are not actually human. Never literary. Never. I want to read you just one bit here. I won't torture you with much. Robert Cohn, he's the Jew in the book, as you'll amply know when you read this. If you read it without your fanboy goggles on, you'll see right away this thing is steaming with sexism, racism, but also anti-Semitism, which is all through this book. Robert Cohn stood in, and don't tell me that it's the anti-Semitism of the characters. Okay. I'm a fairly adept hand at reading. I've been doing it for years now. And I know when a bigotry that I'm reading on the page is meant to be coming from the characters as opposed to when it is helplessly coming from the author. Okay. I'm happy to make my case. Robert Cohn stood in the shade of the arcade waiting for us to start. A Basque with a big leather wine bag in his lap lay across the top of the bus in front of our seat, leaning back against our legs. He offered the wineskin to Bill and to me, and when I tipped it up to drink, he imitated the sound of a klaxon motor horn so well and so suddenly that I spilled some of the wine, and everybody laughed. He apologized and made me take another drink. He made the klaxon again a little later, and it fooled me a second time. He was very good at it. The Basque liked it. I know that the fanboys out there are going, "Oh, the master." But that's junk. That's just junk. And the book is all that and nothing else, except for the tiny bits of time, once at the beginning, once in the middle, and a couple of times at the end, where our author, I believe the withering phrase in the American South would be, bless his heart, tries to philosophize. Where he, again, I would say that he's following the rules of Dude Bro Lit, but he actually made the rules of Dude Bro Lit, where he's writing that kind of stultifying ABC, 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 and if you don't like it, I'll knock you down. Physically, I myself, Ernest Hemingway, will knock you down. Not literary at all, in other words. ABC, ABC, ABC. There'll be times when he's writing that for page after page after mind-numbing page, and then suddenly it'll be the vortices of the universe and the spiraling whims of fate. Because, as we've covered in my 7 Sins of Dude Bro Lit, the prose will suddenly break out into purple excesses of the most embarrassing freshman writing workshop kind. And you're not supposed to notice it. You're not supposed to think it's out of the ordinary. You know who's telling this story. You know who's in the narrative telling the story of The Sun Also Rises, and that person does not think that way, does not write that way, does not sound that way. But all of a sudden, because every once in a while, men, we're concerned with building our empire. It's all we think about all day long is building our empire. It doesn't have to be the Roman Empire, but it's all about money. It isn't about anything else. We don't think about anything else. Even the macros, even the food prep, even the pre-workout, it's all about money. Not women. Women don't think about money. Women don't think about anything. It's about money. We're building our empire, but every once in a while we sit back. We've got our drugs, and we sit back, and we like to think about the broader things, just for a minute or two. I know that in the terms of this book, I know that's an awful fairy-ish thing to do, but we don't do it for long, and then we go right back to punching people, including punching the reader rhetorically with da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. This book, I won't say that it hit a fad. It started a fad in American letters for 2 decades after The Sun Also Rises came out. The literary marketplace in America, and also disastrously in some parts of the UK market, were flooded with people trying to imitate this crap prose. And it's still not gone. It's still not gone from the American world. I could point to 4 or 5 authors who bring out books every year that are essentially just warmed over Hemingway. And warmed over Hemingway doing this kind of shtick. It was an act. It was all an act. But anyway, I reread The Sun Also Rises when I got this lovely Penguin Classic Deluxe edition. I was not impressed. In fact, the more time you let go, if you're not a fanboy, the more time you let go, and then the more you read, you come back to it, the more you see how ugly these books are. And I don't just mean the intentionally artless prose. I mean, they're steeped in ugliness. No one in these books is good. No one in these books is anything except venally self-centered and self-obsessed. Every bigotry in the world is on these pages, and I don't mean that the characters have the bigotries. I mean that the pages are crafted out of that kind of bigotry and sexism and cruelty and stupidity. It's just... So I know that your Daily Penguin is not about recommending books, but this is your Daily Penguin for today, a Daily Penguin deluxe edition of The Sun Also Rises, which is lovely. If, this is going to sound paradoxical given what I've said, but if the crew at Penguin Classics brings out the rest of Hemingway as he falls into the public domain, if they bring out the rest of him this way, their Old Man in the Sea is beautiful. I think they do an Old Man in the Sea. If they bring out the rest of him in editions that are this lovely, it will certainly be a set to have if you are a Hemingway fan. I just don't think you should be. That's all. So that's your Daily Penguin. We'll see if we can find happier climes tomorrow. Thank you, BookTube.